Hi, Tim Horschel, New Voyager Trading with a version of Tim Talks, and today we're going to help you put together your new Polonaise spinning wheel. This model from the Kromskis is my favorite. You might hear me say that in some of the other videos we do. Architecturally, it's just a masterful job. You won't find this amount of detailed wood turning on any other wheel in the market. It's a traditional Scandinavian, Norwegian style, Baltic area type of spinning wheels, lots of them made in Europe, and lots of them made in the U.S., in the upper Midwest in the previous centuries. This is a great spinning wheel. I know you're going to love it, but we've got to take all these parts that we have and get them organized and get them put together on this wheel, make some adjustments. So stay with me. We'll walk you through the steps, and probably about 45 minutes you'll have it all ready to go and test out. We're going to put the rear leg on the Polonaise. The front legs and the tread will come assembled. Today for this demo I'm using a wheel we've had in our display room for quite some time. It's got a little different style leg here in the back. Yours is going to be a rounded end. Push that leg up in there. There's no particular rotation it needs, and with a mallet tap it home until it's up in there, and everything looks good. You should consider gluing that leg in there. This will make your base here a lot more sound. Then we're going to go from that rear leg to this part, which is the table that the mother of all sits into, and we place it right here on the end of the bench, and we're going to use one of these combinations of barrel nuts and bolts and a couple of washers. If you've got 4 of these and 2 of them are shorter, the shorter ones go up in here. You're going to come underneath here. The barrel nut is inside these little holes here. You're going to come underneath with the bolt mechanism, go through that barrel nut, and you can snug this up very tight to hold this bench hold this table to this bench down below. We're on to installing the wheel post, this long adjusting screw and a thumb screw here at the top of the wheel post. These threads that are on these 2 items here, as well as any other threads that you'll see here on the wood, we would like you to, before you thread them through, take some candle wax, paraffin, and just coat those threads real well, and as they go through the different parts, they'll rotate easier. We're going to take this post, goes into the bench like this, and over here, the end of the adjusting screw goes into the table over here. And you're going to back that into there, and then we'll show you how you're going to lock that into position and tighten everything up. So I've got both of these adjusting screws back into the end of the table here. And you'll note that there's a hole on the top of the table here, 2 of them. And what we want to do is back these adjusting screws into that hole so we can take one of these long pegs, and we're going to push it down through the hole, and it's going to go through a notch that's on the adjusting screw. And you just need to secure that. These pegs are important because they allow this adjusting screw to move and cause a movement to the wheel posts by locking them in here. If we did not have these pegs, you would not be able to adjust the wheel post and the angle of the wheel to the flyer, which we'll show you near the end of this video. You want to come underneath now with the rest of this metal hardware up inside to the post from underneath into a barrel nut and tighten these up real snug, because they're set now. You won't be adjusting them any further. This is your mother of all assembly. You have a base piece, a front and rear maiden, and we have this set up so the optional Scotch tension brake band is installed here. This unit, in conjunction with your flyer and bobbin and whirl, are going to sit up on the back part of the table here. Let me note here that the alignment of this rounded part of the mother of all is slightly at an angle. It's not parallel with this flat board we have underneath here, and that's on purpose. We want a little slight angle on that, and you're ready to go. What we want to do is take this unit, and you can go ahead and assemble it just like this, and you want to position it on the bench. And you want the end with the large hole. This will be towards the spinner, and we're going to position it here, and we have a few other parts that are going to allow us to use this to adjust the tension on the drive band. And let me put that on correctly. It's got some guideposts under here, little pegs. It's going to sit right on this bench on purpose there. More threaded screws. We suggest that you take some candle wax again and get those on the threads. Both of these. This shorter one goes up underneath the bench, goes up through the hole that's in the mother of all, and comes out on top. And you can secure it with this little wooden nut. Just turn that down on that. And what we're going to do is take this adjusting rod, goes into the end of the bench and through the hole that's in that other threaded part we just installed coming up from the bottom. And you'll want to thread that through it. And like these other long adjusting screws over here, this adjusting arm here, this adjusting rod has a notch in it. We want to get that into the bench so that we can look down through here and we can see the notch. And we're going to take our last long little peg here and we're going to push it down through here. This is going to lock this adjusting rod in here. So when you rotate it, your mother of all moves. If you didn't have that peg in there, just this would rotate and nothing would move. So this locking pin back here is real important. Make sure it's down in that notch, and you'll know right away because the mother of all will start sliding one way or the other as you begin to adjust this. Now at this stage, I want to remind you to do something that's real important that I always forget. Put your drive band in between the two wheel posts and in between the two maidens and just let it hang. We're going to use that in just a second. But now we're going to install the wheel and the footman. You'll notice here on the footman I've got a leather tie at the end of it. You want to tie a square knot right underneath the end of the footman there. Tie it as tight as you can and then take your footman and work it onto the metal crank part of the wheel. You'll notice that the crank, the metal parts here have a cup on each side, and we suggest you take some petroleum jelly and touch it into those holes because that'll make a nice point of lubrication here between those cups and the pins that are up here on these two thumb screws. Now what you want to do is drop the footman through this hole. The wheel comes through or between the two posts, and you want to start bringing in those thumb screws now to support the wheel. And ideally, you want those thumb screws to come into the wheel with enough tension that the wheel posts start to bend out just a bit, and maybe another quarter turn after that, and you got a wheel that's going to rotate real well. Now let's tie the footman to the treadle. We've got this square knot at the bottom of the footman. What we want you to do is pull the leather through the single hole that's towards the spinner here on the footman, on the treadle. Pull that square knot so it's down inside that hole as much as you can, and then bring your two ends up through the other two holes. And once you've got that as tight as you can make it, you want to tie an overhand knot and just tie a bow. And that is all you need to do. This leather may loosen up over a couple of weeks or time, and you may have to retie it, but just make sure that the connection there between the footman and the treadle is as firm as you can make it. Now's the time to put your flyer, bobbin, and a whirl, this mechanism here, onto the wheel. This is your front part, the orifice that sits closest to the spinner. You want to get this drive band in place. Just drop it on the far end. The front of the flyer comes through the large hole in this leather bearing, and the back goes in the slot back here. And we'll want to work the drive band onto the wheel. And I'll show you how to adjust that in just a second. The tensioning of your drive band over here is controlled by this adjusting screw down here. This is your tension adjusting screw. And when you put the drive band on, it's probably going to be slack at this point, and you want to move this mother of all mechanism back in this direction towards me, and I'm turning clockwise in this case, and you can see I'm taking the slack out, And what we want to make sure is that one loop of the dry band goes on the bobbin and the other one goes on the whirl, and I can move that over there now. And we'll deal with the tracking of the wheel vis-a-vis the flyer over here in just a second. But as you turn this, you want to make sure that this nut up above here is a little bit loose, and perhaps most people just leave it a little bit loose all the time. But if it's tightened down, you won't be able to move this mechanism and you might break something. So you just give it a little turn here, adjust it to where you want it, and then if you like, you can go ahead and snug it down or just leave it a little bit loose. That way you can make quick adjustments as you're spinning. Starting to look like a spinning wheel, huh? We're almost there. We want to top off these wheel posts with these decorative caps. We want to take your threading hook, and you can store it here on the table or bench if you like. You have an extra whirl, either a large or a small one, and there's a small wooden peg. It goes here in the back. Push it in, and then you can keep your whirl there so you can find it when you need it. The only other thing we need to do before we do some final adjusting is you have another longer round peg here, and you're going to push that into the footman to secure the footman to the crank. Just slide that in here and you have a good connection now. And we're on to discussing how we can maintain this wheel, adjust it, and make it work as you want it to. Now we're going to adjust the angle or the aiming, what we call the aiming of the wheel towards the flyer. Unlike other wheels, the Polonaise allows this canting to take place. In other wheels, you have to turn the wheel post to do that and make that final adjustment. But here on the Polonaise, it's something that you can do with these long adjusting screws here between the post and the table back here. You want to rotate the wheel just a little bit and see where the dry band is tracking. And if you want to move it one way or the other, you take these two screws simultaneously and you turn them both in. Let me show you how that works. Notice the wheel moving. Or you turn them both out, and you can change the orientation of this wheel over here towards the flyer. And what you want is aiming where the dry band tracks more or less to the middle, and there is a nice aiming over here towards this space between the bobbin and the whirl. And once you have that, you're done. You don't have to come back and do this ever again unless somebody plays with these here. So keep the kids away. But this one-time adjustment, this is what a Polonaise or a Scandinavian, Norwegian type wheel, this is what they offer here. And it's a nice little function, but you just need to do it once. So line up the wheel now, look over the top of the wheel towards the flyer, grab those adjusting screws and turn them out or in, both of them at the same time, the same amount, and you're good to go. Okay, let's wrap this up. You've got your Polonaise all together. Let's talk about some adjustments and lubrication. The footman here going through the bench down here has to go through without touching the sides of the bench. If need be, adjust these two thumb screws to move the wheel one side or the other just a bit. So as it rotates, the footman goes up and down through that hole without hitting. Remember to put petroleum jelly here on these cups for good lubrication. You can also lubricate down here where the treadle rail, the pins go through these front legs. Over here at the mother of all, you want to lubricate in the back and the front where these leather bearings are. And in fact, we suggest you take these maiden posts off and put some 30 weight oil in a little dish and dip the leathers in and let them sit overnight, and they'll suck up all that oil. That's a nice reserve for you. And then each time you sit down to spin, add a couple drops here at the front and the rear. Also here where the bobbin rotates at the front and the back on the metal spindle that goes through the flyer, you want to put a drop of oil there each time you change that bobbin. I think that's about it. This is my favorite wheel, and now you're going to be your favorite wheel. We appreciate you thinking about the Kromskis and New Voyager Trading and the fine products that the Kromskis make, including this Polonaise. Have fun spinning.